BeeHive Storytelling presents Mischief Managed by BeeHive, read by the author. Prologue. A flashing orange sign hung high in the window of number 2 High Street in Hogsmeade Village. Weasley's Wizard Weezes, reopening in Hogsmeade, fall 1998. The date was crossed out, and bright red letters overlay the sign. Grand reopening after the Christmas holidays, it read. It was late December that same year. The bell from the village chimed 6 o'clock as its chilled inhabitants scurried into the buildings, desperate to escape the bitter cold. 2 tall and slender wizards with flaming red hair sat looking out the frosted window from the damp basement of number 2, while a young witch in violet robes walked up and down the corridors. Rows upon rows of polished wooden shelves overflowing with orange and purple sweet boxes was strewn around the room haphazardly. The young witch Verity, who looked barely past school age, began tapping her wand against the shelves and taking notes on her clipboard as the crate of Wonder Witch products organized themselves neatly in a row. Boxes lay scattered and messy along the cellar floor, reminders of the deathly war that tore through the last decade. The taller man thought to himself how very much work still needed to be done before the shop would be ready to host teams of eager young witches and wizards the coming week after winter term had ended. "That's enough for today, Verity. You put the rest of us to shame waking like that so close to Christmas. Come and have a tot with us." The man waved his wand and a bottle appeared. Steaming amber liquid poured over 3 hovering glasses, each bursting into a brilliant blue flame before fizzling out, leaving a rich, warm cloud of smoke. The glasses levitated over to the 2 brothers and into the outstretched hand of the young witch, who looked embarrassed. "I don't mind, really. I could use the extra hours." Her eyebrows furrowed as she examined the liquid in her glass. "Rubbish. Come and sit," the younger brother said with a wink. "We won't be here much longer. Miney will be expecting me back soon anyway." He blushed slightly at his brother's sly grin. "I really shouldn't." She continued examining the contents of her glass. "My Gran doesn't fancy me drinking—" She sniffed the liquid and coughed violently. "What is it then?" The elder brother, a man called George, took a stiff swig, causing thick blue steam to bellow out of his nostrils. Everyone laughed. "Dragon whiskey," he roared with a boyish grin. "Is it like fire whiskey, then?" his brother Ron asked, looking skeptically down at his own glass. "Fire whiskey, psh!" George scoffed reproachingly. "Don't insult me, Ronald. No, this," he snapped the bottle out of the air, "is a Weasley original. Just made a deal with Rose Murta, the 3 broomsticks, for 6 barrels. Best contract yet." He held up a bottle labelled Weasley's Finest Dragon Whiskey, took another sip, and pursed his lips into a deep O, blowing a thin flame of blue fire towards his brother, who ducked away grinning just in time. Verity promptly put her glass down on the shelf and announced her departure. "I will get going then, if you really don't mind." She flung a shabby knitted scarf around her neck. George waved her off. "Go on then." His wide smile reached his one remaining ear, and his freckled face gleamed brightly in the firelight. She returned his smile earnestly. She loved working for the Weasleys, and since the war, George noticed she had often found excuses to stay late, announcing more and more projects that needed to be done urgently. He felt he appreciated her now more than ever. Each of them in the room had suffered great loss these past years, and since Fred had been killed, George suspected his mother had let slip just how very lonely he was to the young witch, who had taken up lingering in the shop for his sake. He was flooded with brotherly affection for her as he watched her open the door. The doorbell jingled merrily as she waved, putting on her knitted gloves, and muttered, "If I don't see you then, Happy Christmas, Mr. Weasley and Mr. Weasley." A gust of wind and snow flashed through the open basement door, and both men took a deep, warming gulp from their glasses, grinning broadly at each other. Ron looked down at his maroon knitted sweater and patted down the singed wool, extinguishing the blue flames. "Brilliant! Foul-smelling wool. I'm a right sight now," he mumbled. George laughed jovially, but his heart wasn't quite in it. The coming week would mark the first Christmas since Fred. The loss hung over the Weasley family like a shadow, but none more than George, who never fully got over the death of his twin. "What's that you've got there, then?" Ron balanced the glass on his knee as he reached over to pull a large box from beside George's chair. George flicked his wand and overslid the box, landing directly into his lap. With another quick tap, the box opened and the top soared away, landing neatly on the floor beside them. Another pretentious swirl from George's wand and several items floated up, hovering between the brothers. He plucked one out of the air and held it up to be examined. Ron tilted his head and read aloud, "Daily Prophet, 14th April 1978. He looked up. "The year you were born." A knowing nod from George, the paper in his outstretched hand urged him further. Ron took it from him, unfolded it clumsily, and began reading. "Disappearing twins born on Muggle prank holiday." He looked up at George, enthralled. The headline quickly changed to "Identical twins born and disappeared." Ron read on. "Fred Gideon and George Fabian, born 1st April 1978, to Arthur and Molly Weasley of Ottery St. Catchpole. Healer Strout reports, in my 30 years at St. Mungo's, we've never seen a set like this before. Poor mother has been in hysterics since they were brought in. It has been reported by several correspondents to the hospital that the newborns have been taking turns disappearing and reappearing from their cradles since their birth 2 Saturdays last. It's about driven the poor mother mad." A photo showed what seemed to be a crowded reception area where rows of witches and wizards sat upon rickety wooden chairs, all looking eagerly over into room 223, trying to catch a glimpse of the vanishing infants. The article trailed off as Ron stifled a laugh in George's direction, not quite wondering if it was a time to be serious or a time to mourn. George had grown more serious these days. He laughed along with his brother, but his smile didn't quite meet his eyes this time. Ron looked over the top of the paper to find a horde of objects. Everyday objects, ordinary to look at, but altogether they told the story of an entire lifetime. A small black polished stone circled heavily and collided with a gold galleon. A piece of parchment with 2 messy handwritten words and a sharp yellowing tooth hanging from a leather string swirled around the other objects hovering in midair. Ron settled deeper into his armchair and waited in the silence, hoping his brother would find the courage to continue on. George sat absently for a long moment, and Ron let him. Ron swished his wand clumsily at the bottle overhead, refilling their glasses and spilling only a little onto his singed maroon jumper. Ron's cheeks went crimson. He had never had the aptitude for spells that his elder brothers possessed. Seeing this, George softened and pulled a lock of stark white hair tied with a blue ribbon out of the end between them. "You've got to explain that one, mate," Ron grinned. The men shared a sentimental look. Encouraged, George held up the lock of hair and began, "The thing about Fred and making mischief." And the men sat together, swept up in the memories of their late brother. As George talked on, a peaceful calm rushed over them both, a calm they hadn't felt in a great many years.